PJ Holden, welcome to Creator in Conversation. How are you keeping today?
Very well, thank you. I'm good. Just working, busy, always busy.
Ah, good way to be, as they say.
Hmm.
You recently just came back from Enniskillen Comic Con. That seems to be a great show. It's on my bucket list to get up there eventually, but it's been going a number of years now. How was it for you this year?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, Enniskillen's a very comic focused website, and it really comes from the heart of Paul Trimble, who is sort of very much old school British boys comic fan who kind of built a convention, a festival around. I don't want to say around his interest because that sounds quite self-centered, but it is, it is very much to his tastes. Which is great because it means, it is very comics focused. The guests tend to be, it tends to have more guests than a lot of other smaller, larger shows, even. And you look at something like the Dublin Comic Con and things like that, where you maybe have one or two international guests and very few sort of UK guests. This is kind of quite a lot of UK artists and writers and so on. And so it's a good, I mean, it's a great one to be a guest at because you end up being spend a lot of time with the other guests because you're usually in the same hotel and going out for a drink. And the show we just did, the first time I've ever been to a show actually where what happened was a spontaneous sketch off occurred in the bar late at night at 12 o'clock at night. Like, I've been going to comic conventions since about 1997 or something, and I usually, my comfort zone is to be sitting with a drawing pad in front of me and sketching. And that is unusual. Most artists don't do that. And then over the decades, I've kind of slowly stopped doing that. And this shows there's a whole table of other artists sitting drawing, sketching. I went, why am I not doing this? And so I joined in. Silly. I mean, I actually probably more fun than the convention, but actually the convention was good. I do a web comic called Terran Omega, which has just recently been nominated for an Eisner Award for Best Web Comic.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I had a couple of copies. So I did a couple of small self-published versions of the first issue of it. So I had a few of those with me, and I was talking to people about that and trying to get people. I mean, basically, I come from the very firm school of, well, what's the point of making a comic if no one's reading the thing? So I have to make sure people read it. So I have to tell them about it. So that was a lot of fun.
That's amazing. And actually, I was just before we were coming on to talk today, I was on your website, pjholden.com. I'm going to put the link up on today's podcast and in the thumbnail
It's
because,
actually, it's irritatingly, and this is my fault, it's pauljholden.com.
oh, Paul J. Holden, apologies.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's
That's fine.
mental slip on my part. But what's amazing about it is it's so part of this podcast is all about we talk with creators, the process, the day to day. But your website is amazing. Like you give a living diary, a journal of what you're doing, providing great insight alongside work in progress. And then, as you said, you have Terran Omega as well, which you can go on and read. And there is, of course, your Patreon as well. Is the Patreon Paul J. Holden at patreon.com or is it?
I can't really, you can find a Patreon from my website. I mean, I would stress that, like, I like doing stuff and giving it away. Like, I like making comics, and I don't care if I get paid. I mean, I kind of long ago, I think right in the early days of my career, I kind of came to the conclusion that for me, success meant being able to draw the kind of things I like drawing and being able to pay my bills. And those two things don't have to be linked. They don't have to be linked. It'd be nice if they're linked, but they don't have to be linked. And because for a long time I was working in IT, and I worked in IT while I was drawing comics, and so I mean, money comes in and goes out of my bank account. I never relate which piece of art costs this amount or that amount. So I obviously, there's work which I do which I get paid for, and that work I can't just give away. But like Terran Omega, I give it away. It's all up there. Now, what I do on the Patreon, which is different from the website, which is why you might want to go to the Patreon, is that I color Terran Omega. It's a full color webcomic, but you can only read it if you're subscribed to the Patreon, and you're paying, I think, from a minimum of $1. I set up lots of people have lots of different tiers, and that one of the problems with Patreon, I think, if you're a creator, is that if you're going to set up tiers, you kind of start thinking, well, now if someone's paying $5 a month or $10 a month and $25, or whatever these tiers might be, I've got to give each of these people different things. And the problem
Mm,
with that is that if you're doing something like that, and the tiers I have are $1, $2, $5, and $10, like they're very small amounts of money. But say you're doing a $1 tier for someone and you're doing a $10 tier, but you're only making, I don't know, $15 a month or something in total. That's not enough money to justify doing anything extra in those things. So the way I do it is that basically I consider those tiers as a reader's donation. I
mhm.
don't consider it a payment for a thing. So I do a black and white for free, and everything else, color, behind the scenes stuff, all of that is any of the tiers. Doesn't matter which tier you go on, you get exactly the same thing, because it's up to you how much you're willing to pay. And it's not, I'm not gonna. There isn't enough money in it for me to kind of go, oh, I've got to do this and I've got to spend 2 days doing this for this person. It doesn't work out really that way. So, but I mean, I earn something like $130 a month, which is a tiny, tiny amount. Barely would pay for one page of artwork, but it does mean that come the end of, say, 6 months, there's enough money in there I can print a copy of the book,
Oh,
which is
very
great.
good.
I can just take it straight out of the Patreon, pay for a printed copy without touching my own. I mean, Terran Omega is sorry. I am so sorry. On like if you
No, no,
start
no.
me
Go ahead.
talking, I will not stop. Is the
No,
problem?
no, go
Uh,
ahead. Absolutely. No, no, keep going. This has been brilliant. And just also for the audio audience, patreon.com/ PJ Holden is the Patreon as well.
thank you very much.
But this has
But
been great to hear because I know Trina Farrell has a
hmm,
Patreon. I've been weighing up doing it with, because we do digital comics and podcast stuff, and we're like, maybe just to help with monetization. So we get diddly from any of
yeah.
the funding bodies down here. But yeah, continue on. This has
I,
been
th- I
great
think you need, I
insight.
think you need to be really big to be able to monetize it properly. I mean, really big. And the thing is, if you're really big, you don't need them. You don't need Patreon. So,
Mm,
if you're the likes of Jock, you could probably make a fortune from it. But if you're the likes of Jock, you probably don't need to make any money from it. So it's a sort of, yeah. And I think there's probably a lot of people who do make a kind of good income from Patreon, and have grown an audience there, but are not in print. That's their primary audience. So for me, it was just about, like, I kind of did Terran Omega, just to fill anyone in the background of me. I worked in IT for 20 years or so. I started my career in 2000, doing stuff for 2000 AD. That's all I really ever wanted to do was draw Judge Dredd, and I got to do that almost immediately when I kind of broke into comics. For about 8 years, I did both. For about 8 years, from 2000 2008, I was working in IT and drawing comics professionally. And then I've been sort of drawing stuff ever since, from 2008, just as a freelance comic artist. Most of my work's for 2008. I've done bits and pieces for DC. I've done lots and lots of other smaller publishers. Um, but essentially, like a lot of comic artists, my career is one of reacting to being asked to do a job. It is a kind of, are you free to do this? Are you free to do that? And so the amount of kind of steer you've got on your own career is sort of limited by how you react to those options. So, for example, I do a lot of World War II stuff, but that comes about because I kind of was interested in doing World War II stuff, was asked to do one, and said yes to it. I mean, if I'd said no to the first World War II thing, I wouldn't be doing any World War II stuff now. And I've been doing World War II stuff for maybe the guts of 10 or 15 years. And so my career has been shaped by those yes no decisions. The thing that is harder, it's harder to make a proactive choice. It's harder to kind of go, oh, I would like to draw some horror stuff, because unless somebody offers me some horror stuff and I get to say yes or no to it, I can't choose that. Does that make sense? I can't,
mhm,
as
yeah.
an artist anyway. A writer has I mean, I hesitate to say that anyone has any control over your career, because you're always at the mercy of other forces. And so, in some respects, you're always a little boat in a massive ocean with waves pushing and pulling you. But the difference is, with an artist, you maybe have a slightly sturdier boat, but you've no way to steer it. And as a writer, you maybe have a weaker boat, but you've got all the steerage you can manage. You don't necessarily get to go the directions you want to go, but you can at least start heading those directions. So I mean, I suppose it's been built up over the years, the decision making process in my head for this sort of thing. But it's like I've seen Herb Trimp at a comic convention talking about working for Marvel Comics and how he altered his art style so that he could still be relevant and still work. And then one day the work just dried up, and that was the end for him. And he couldn't push any further because he was, everything he'd done had belonged to Marvel. And essentially everything I've done belongs to someone else. I've done a couple of creator-owned things, but with writers. And that's for. I mean, I've been really, really lucky. Simon Spurrier, Gordon Rennie, the two main guys. I've done stuff with Mark Sable as well. The war book that I'm doing at the moment with Mark Russell is partially creator-owned as well. But
It's very funny about that book with Dog Tag because we had Mark on the podcast early in the season and he came
yeah,
in, gave a talk to students, and then he said, I'm doing a new book with PJ Holden. And I was like, I know PJ. And mentally in my mind, I got you mixed up. And people listen back, they'll hear it, but I was autocorrect and I figured it out with JP Jordan. And then I
oh yeah,
realized
yeah.
JP
Well,
is the colorist. And then I'm like,
JP's the
oh,
colorist.
now
Yeah.
it's just taking
Yeah,
taking the fun
it's
out.
an easy mistake to make, I think. PJ and JP, yeah.
But he was
They're
going to tease the book at the time, and then I think he couldn't. He's just about and he couldn't get the file up. But then he turned around and it's released now through Mad Cave,
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, this seems
Issue
like.
two's out this week, I think, maybe.
And the previews are out now. In fact,
Yeah.
just at this point of recording, if anyone's listening to listen to this
It's a good book,
episode,
but it suffers a little from the fact that Mad Cave, I don't understand the distribution. So Dynamite used to be, or not Dynamite, sorry. What were they called? The main distributors of all comics, Diamond
Di
Distributors.
Diamond,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, Diamond kind of messed up over COVID. A lot of companies, publishing companies, went to different distributors, and Diamond were the only ones that were reliably distributing comics into the UK. And now lots of the smaller distributors can't quite do it or don't do it differently, and so my local comic shop can't get hold of it. So I haven't seen a copy of the book, which is a
Oh
bit
well,
frustrating. Just to get back to what I was
yeah,
saying,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
I
of
derailed
course, yeah.
myself. Was that you slowly but surely you build this idea in your head that you're going to get to a certain age and look back and go, I don't own any of this stuff, and so you need to start thinking about how do I do creator own stuff. And the problem with doing creator own stuff is that if I work with a writer, it becomes a question of, well, I need to be able to pay for I need paid to do this, just because like to do a single book, as I'm sure you're aware, it takes at least a month of just doing that one thing. I'm kind of quite lucky in that I'm fast, so I can do more than that, but actually more than that is like that's hard graft. That is not easy. So you kind of, I mean, I've toyed with the idea of doing self-publishing or doing something, and I know I'm also lucky that I know a lot of really great writers who are sort of willing to go, I'd like to do something together, but it's very difficult to ask them to commit to something when I don't know myself if I can commit to it.
Mhm.
And so eventually I kind of was like, well, I need to write something for myself. That's the only way I can, at least then if I let myself down, if the artist version of me lets down the writer version of me, that's not the end of the world. I don't want to work with and I've done, I mean, it's happened a couple of times where I've worked with a writer and I've been the weak link in the chain where circumstances, family stuff, or something else has got in the way that has meant that I haven't been able to do it within a time frame that suits. And it's just been, yeah, I need to come off this book. I need to not do this. Because again, it's not the writer's fault. It's down to time management, and it's down to money, and it's down to kind of, there's always something where work for hire is concerned. You're always being paid more money, and so you've got to look at how much physical work you can do in a month. And I can do, at best, at peak, I think I can do 45 pages a month, which is insane. I mean, I've done that maybe 4 times in my entire artist career where I've done 45, 50 pages a month. More likely it's going to be 20, 25 pages a month. more likelier than that even is about 18. And when your limit is 18 pages per month and 22 pages are unpaid or very low page rate, and somebody says, do you want to do 6 pages and it pays this amount of money, you end up taking that amount of money. So Terran Omega was a way for me to kind of write something and figure out a way to draw it, so that if I were to work with a writer and they were to go, I've got this script, how long do you think it'll take you to draw? And you go, it's going to take me, it's 48 pages, it's going to take me 1 year. They might go, that's not gonna fly. And I would go, I understand, that's perfectly reasonable. Whereas doing it for myself, writing a thing for myself and going, it's going to take me a year to do it. Fine. It'll take me a year to do it. I'll draw 1 page a week. I'll put it for free on. That's the other thing. I mean, I've worked with writers before where it's like, what distribution channels we're going to use, and I have ideas. I don't know if they'll work. I don't know if they're going to pan out the way I want them to. Um, I don't know if putting the stuff online for free is a good idea or not. But I do know that the writer will usually. I mean, it's part of it is that I tend to seek out writers that have publishing deals already. So when they go, that's like, yeah, this publisher's interested, but they need it within this time frame, and they can only pay this amount of money. And so it's got all these different kind of connected things to it that make it harder to do. Whereas Terran Omega was like, well, do you know, if I don't finish it, it doesn't matter. If I drop an issue, if I drop, like, if I get 10 pages into this and I decide this is a bad idea and I can't afford to do it, it's not the end of the world. I haven't let anyone down, bar me, so it doesn't really matter. But as it turns out, doing it 1 page a week actually was a good idea. Um, so doing it 1 page a week, I put it on Patreon because I thought, well, I can monetize it a little bit, which is a horrible phrase, but I can. I can put it on Patreon by kind of putting the black and white on there, putting a color version on there, which I was only going to color the first couple of pages actually. But I kind of went, after I'd done the first couple, I was like, oh, I'll keep coloring. It's not that hard. I'll throw it onto the mix. I'll color some more. And just doing that. And then the Eisners were coming up, and I thought, well, I cannot, you can put yourself forward. Doesn't mean you'll get nominated, but you can put yourself forward. So I put the book forward as thinking, well, why not? I mean, if nothing else, someone on the Eisner committee will have looked at it. That's all. One extra reader, maybe. That's all that meant. But then they looked at it and decided it was, good enough to be in the running for nominees. So now it's in the running. So that's
Will you be
kind
going
of.
to San Diego for the?
No, I can't afford that. Are you crazy?
I can
No, no.
DHL you if you're willing to go on a crate. I'll DHL you. Put in some bottles of water.
No, no, yeah, I mean, a couple of friends have said about going to San Diego. And it's like, oh, you should definitely go. And if I was going to go, I've never considered San Diego ever. Never thought about it. It's never been on my card or wish list. It's not on the bucket list. Nothing, because everything I've heard about San Diego makes it sound like a nightmare. And the period that I might have gone to San Diego would have been the late 90s, early 2000s, because a lot of my peers, people who were working, kind of breaking into the small press, are working in the small press, breaking into comics at that time. I remember seeing photos of Simon Spurrier and Fraser Irving and a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of British, because even though I'm based in Belfast, I have always been more connected to the British small press and comic scene. Um, I don't know why that is. I think it's because Belfast is quite small, and Northern Ireland's quite small, and there has never been, when I grew up here, there wasn't particularly a lot of comic stuff going on that I could see. It wasn't until 1988 when I met John McCrae, who had opened a comic shop with his friend, that I was like, oh, there are other people into comics here. It's not just me. So when small press stuff happened, it was from looking at a magazine called Comics International, looking for adverts for people, looking for artists and connecting. And they were in the UK. They were in the mainland, as it were. So sorry, I ramble a lot. I
No, no, no. This is great. No, it's really good to hear because it's so funny having all the different speakers on the podcast. Even your comments about San Diego and all have been shared by a multitude of guest speakers, and it's like it's work for them. They have to go. It's
oh
not like
yeah,
a fun holiday. It's even
yeah.
people who go because they want to go for a particular panel. Well, they're dedicating an entire weekend of life just to stay in the queue. It's insane.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's not. I mean, even like Enniskillen, which is a lovely convention. If I go to Enniskillen, that's essentially wiping out 2 days of work.
mm,
So
yeah,
that's 2 days of paid work that I've got to take aside and go, I'm not doing that. And I work 7 days a week. And if I'm not working, it's because I'm doing family stuff. And so that becomes priority. It becomes, number one, family, number two, work, number three, anything else. That's sort of the order of it. And even then, my family will tell you often they're number two. That's so like if we're going away for a weekend, if my wife goes, we'll go here for a weekend, I'll go, right, let's do that. But if it's a comic show, it's like, well, I've got to make a certain amount of money by, selling comics or sketches or something, or at least justify why I'm going. I mean, I went to a few years ago, I was invited over to a comic convention in Montenegro, and
very nice.
I mean, it's a wonderful, brilliant, great opportunity. My wife couldn't go; it was just me. I didn't really read the invite, so I didn't realize it was a full week in Montenegro.
Oh,
So as the date approached, I started looking at the details after I'd already said yes. I was like, "On, oh no, oh no, oh no." And then I went over, and unlike a lot of conventions, the Montenegro convention is kind of it's dotted around the Montenegro, so you're in different little locations for an hour or two, and they just want you to sketch. You're not expected to sell anything. You're not expected to bring anything. In fact, most of the people you're sketching for don't even know who you are or what you're doing. So it's an odd little thing, but beautiful, beautiful place, lovely people, a free holiday in essence. But I didn't want a holiday, nor did I realize I was going on holiday. So I had a miserable time. And I think if you ask anyone, they'll confirm it. I was kind of basically every night going, what are we doing? Are we doing something? Yeah, we've got 2 hours of sketching. Great, I'll do that. What are we doing now? Oh, you're free to do whatever you want. I'll go back to my room and work because it's like
everyone listening to this episode now is holding the phone out, staring at you, PJ, going, "What is happening?
that.
How is this a problem?"
But that's the thing. I mean, that was Montenegro. I was in Athens, and again, similar sort of thing. I mean, I've been to Athens a couple of times. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. You can make a little bit of money selling sketches at the show and stuff, and that can offset some of the cost of being away from the house. But it's still, you're still away for 4 or 5 days, and it's like, and you build your schedule around the work you've got. So you're kind of going, well, I've got this amount of work, and so if you don't get the work done, you're running late. That's it. I only get paid to work. It's when no one pays me for not working. So
True.
if I'm not working, I'm earning nothing. And comics is not a phenomenally well-paid career path. So you survive on being able to work fast and being able to, do enough work to cover. I mean, I need to draw maybe 16 pages a month to cover my
Oh,
bills.
well.
Above that, it's like great, but 16 pages a month covers my bills, and tax and more than that is good. So you kind of if you're taking a week off, as I did for Athens, that's a week of not drawing. That is in essence six pages of artwork that I'm not doing. So these things, I mean, these are things. I mean, if anyone wants to become a professional comic artist, these are the things you've got to consider. You don't think about them because they're not real. And also at the very start of my career, because I was working in IT and it paid all my bills, I could happily go to lots of comic conventions and just fart around and not do anything because I was there for the social aspect of it, and to meet people. And then the moment that your career picks up and you end up earning your money by drawing, suddenly you can't afford to do those shows because not so much because they're expensive. And I mean, sometimes the show will actually, they'll put you up in a hotel, they'll pay your flights and so on. So you're sort of not out of pocket, but you're out of pocket by the amount of work you can't do.
This is true. It is a business. We do a lot of entrepreneurship studies and conversations at the academy as well. And my whole career in teaching, like I began teaching in third level by teaching business to video game students, then animation. My interest always lay in comic books, so then I moved over. But these are
Hmm.
really important considerations that are easily overlooked. A colleague of mine, you know as well, Rob Carey, who's knocking out of the park with Ben 10
Hmm.
at the moment. He always made a good point when we were doing some of the Light and Strike stuff back in the day of if you don't add value to your work, no one will. Like if you don't turn around and say, this is like how much we're going to charge for this comic, or this is the time, treat it as a job. If you're not willing to do that, you'll never make that transition, that leap. And sometimes it may look on paper as madness to say no to a holiday, but then the reality 2 months down when you're catching up on your bills, it's too late then
Oh yeah,
to
yeah.
set
I mean,
in. So
it is
absolutely.
that I've always kind of like at the very outset of my career, I kind of figured out I needed 3 months' salary in the bank,
Mm,
because the way it works is that the way I always reasoned it was that if I run out of work, it's going to take me 1 month to find new work.
mm,
If I'm lucky enough to find work. So it'll take 1 month to find it. It'll take 1 month to do it. And it'll take 1 month for them to pay me, which means I need 3 months' salary in the bank to survive that. So that's your bare minimum. Before you
yeah.
even get going, that's your bare minimum just to make sure you survive. And if it turns out um, you can't get work in the first month or the second month, by that third month, you've got to start looking for a day job.
Yeah, and that's a quarter of your year as well. When you look at it, like it's three, 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 three. So yeah, so that's basically a quarter of your year. Have it in, like it is important. I often discuss with students the diversification of skill set. Like if you
Yeah.
can, like I always say to them, a lot of them are studying and working with 'cause they want to break into comics, and it's
Mm.
like yeah, it's great to find work in comics, but if someone comes to you and say storyboarding, logo design, character design, asset
Oh yeah.
creation, anything like
Oh,
that, take it.
there's been a couple of years where storyboarding has been the only has been a savior.
Yeah.
And the thing I think actually comics work is quite this is funny. I was like, sometimes my brain goes, I know it's time to start looking at jobs. So I was looking at a job and I was like, oh, this is a digital communication director for health service. And I was thinking, actually, you could do this because comics is communication.
Yeah.
Comics is, and it's just a question of kind of how do you interpret that? It's like, I mean, I take a complex script, a complex set of ideas, and distill it into simple imagery and iconography so that other people can understand what's happening. That is the essence of communication, is being able to kind of take a complex idea, simplify it down, and then make other people understand it instantly. Like you should be able to look at a page of comics and see exactly what's happening on that page without dialogue. You should be able to do that. I mean, the advice I always give people is like, take a page that you've done and show it to someone who doesn't read comics. Show them to your partner or your parents or someone, and don't ask them, is this good? Ask them what they think is happening. And if they can tell you what's happening on the page, you have done that is a perfect job. If they haven't a clue, or they're kind of going, and then this thing happened, and then did they turn into a horse? You're like going, well, you haven't, I've done something wrong. Yeah, if they haven't understood it, there's no point trying to kind of go, no, 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 let me explain. That's a bad idea. What you've got to do is go, right, right, right. And this next page, right, right, right. And take it all in and go away and think, what have I messed up here that will make this more understandable? But that's the thing, that is true in storyboarding, where I did storyboarding for a game show called Flinch, which was, I sat in a room with a guy who was the producer, or sorry, not the producer, he was a researcher, and he was kind of going, this game is about this, and he explained this game idea to me, and my job was to take that and turn it into a comic strip that could be sat in front of a Netflix executive and they could understand it straight away. He would take 20 minutes to explain this to me, and I would sit and go, did you mean like, and this is a thing that you're right, okay, and then, but the idea is that conversation, that hour-long conversation, distills into one page that could be read instantly. And
Mm.
that's what comics are. And I think that's the skill set that you need in comics. And it's a muscle that you build the more comics you do, and it becomes a muscle that is good for lots of jobs that are not necessarily comic book jobs. That ability to kind of distill complex information and kind of tell someone else about it.
Absolutely. And how do you find the work itself? Just any project when you're working on comics, I find, personally speaking, like everything else might be on fire, bills to pay and everything else. But when I'm sitting down putting together a book or drawing something, I get into like not Zen state, but calm and kind of
Oh
appreciate,
yeah.
enjoy it. Have you always been drawn that way to the
Oh,
work of?
absolutely. I mean, I like the I don't know who said it first, but someone once said that I don't get paid to draw, I get paid to send invoices. The drawing I'll do for free.
Very good, very good.
You know. So yeah, I mean, for me, if I'm quite stressed out, it's almost always because I can't get near my drawing table.
Mm.
If I'm really stressed about work, it's because I have got to do a dozen different things before I'm allowed to get near my table to draw something. Drawing is, I mean, every line I put down, at least I kind of, there's a sort of um, uh, it's like a salve. I mean, sometimes it's not. Sometimes every line is like scraping it off your own skin and bare with a blade. It's painful. But if when it's going well, or even going okay-ish, every line is like it's a balm on the idea that there's a deadline ahead and I've got to do this, but actually I'm doing it and it's happening and it's just going to happen at the pace it's going to happen at. So yeah, I mean, and again, this is one of those things that I'm sure you're the same where if I'm not being paid to draw and somebody goes, right, you've got free time, what do you want to do? I'll go, oh, I can draw some comics. Draw some comics. I do,
That's it.
yeah, yeah, frequently I would do, when we would go down to Rathmullen, or up to Rathmullen actually. And Rathmullen is off Donegal. It's near beach. It's nice. We rent a house there. My wife would go out for walks with the kids, and when they were younger, and uh, big table. I'd sit in my sketchbook and I'd write and draw little. I call them Holden on Holly Bobs. Just me on my holidays. Just little silly one-page strips that are not for anything. That's if I don't. I mean, usually I have deadlines, and so even on holiday, I will still have work that I've got to do. But sometimes, if I've managed to finish a gig and get an invoice out, and I don't have to start the next gig yet, and it's time just exactly right for the holiday, I've got a lovely little week long of just nothing. Then it's like, what am I going to do? I'll draw some comics. I mean, and I've definitely done it where I've finished a job and I know I've got time to start the next one, but I'm sitting restless because it's like, well, I mean, I know I shouldn't start it just yet because I should relax and enjoy this time between jobs, but oh, I could also start it right now and, and be ahead. So yeah, I mean we're broken people, I think. That's the
That's true, true.
yeah.
Do you have to work in silence, or do you have the TV or radio going for yourself as you
Depends on
work?
the stage I'm at. So
Okay.
as you know, but I'll step through it just for anyone who doesn't. There's you get your script, you read your script, absolute silence. I'll read my script twice. I'll read the first. Well, I'll read it more than twice actually, but generally, I'll read the first read is about dialogue. I'll just read it for the read of it to just to get a sense of what's just to read it. So what is this story about? Who are these characters? And then the second is more of a kind of, all right, let's go through the panels and what's the logistics of it? What's the, who's talking where, who are the big characters and so on. There's a little, I mean, it's not quite as straightforward as that, but that's roughly the way it happens. And then I'll read it again the third time, and this time will be thumbnail it. And all of this is done in silence.
Okay.
At the thumbnail stage, I might be able to put on Spotify with some music I like, but usually it's older music, stuff that I know well, that is just and it's turned down low. So that stage is kind of quite silent, because my brain is processing words. This is the stage where I am in the input is words and the output is drawing. So I am processing. There's a lot of that going on. So the verbal part of your brain, the verbal processing part, is ticking away and doing stuff. And so silence is good. Then after that, I'm in pencils. In pencils, I can listen to music. Sometimes I'll listen to the radio. But actually, I'm not paying much attention to what's going on. So I certainly can't listen to podcasts. I can't listen to the radio. Once I've penciled it, inking is the stage where I can watch TV.
Okay.
I'll put on. I'm currently watching The Sopranos. I'm doing a rewatch of The Sopranos, which I haven't seen in about 20 years. And I can watch pretty much anything. The only problem is that, as I said to you in that email, is if I'm working, I lose track of time. It's
Okay.
just it goes, and so sometimes I'll put on The Sopranos and I'll burn through 3 episodes and I'll go, why I can't watch any more of this. I don't understand why. And it's because you've watched 3 or 4 episodes of the thing. So, like, switch it to something. Sometimes I'll spend longer looking for something to watch. That's the big downfall, is that I will sometimes go, I might watch a film. I'll spend so long looking for a film. I could have done half a page in that time, instead of just doing it. So, yeah, I mean, the inking is a kind of, I don't need to think about the words anymore. I'm just sitting here inking. I've got all the lines on the page now. I'm just making them look pretty and doing that. So yeah, I'm sure most artists are the same. I do know some that can't process anything. They'll work in silence, or they'll work with music on. But that's kind of that's how my brain does it. If I'm writing, it's absolute silence. I
Mm.
can't handle any other no. And I mean absolute. Like I've bought I've got a Mac Mini. I like Mac computers, and part of the reason is that they're mostly fanless. There's no noise from them. So at one point, I had a big, powerful PC with 3D cards on it, and the thing was like, it probably wasn't as loud as this, but it sounded like a Boeing 747 in your studio space, and I couldn't work with it. It had to be switched off all the time. So the Apple kit at least is sort of silent, and so I sometimes when I like silence, I mean proper silence, dead silence.
There you go. And do you work digital or traditional, or a combination of both?
I have always flipped between both. I say I used to work in IT, so I kind of come from a strong IT background. I started working in IT when I was 14.
Wow.
One of the first programs I ever programmed was I wrote a drawn program on an Amstrad 464, CPC 464 in BASIC, which combined 3 or 4 different drawn programs into one mega drawn program. So I had things like flood fill and stuff that would, like this is stuff that um, Photoshop had, but I don't think Photoshop was even available just yet. So I think you needed to go to high end stuff. But the people were writing program listings, and I would write them out, and then I would draw on my own computer using cursor keys, which was a pain. So I've always drawn. I've always loved digital stuff, playing with it, and I think I started on Clip Studio when it was Manga Studio, but it was not until version 3, because I'm old enough to come from the tradition of the no software is any good until it's version 3. That was a truism when I worked in IT. Um, so Manga Studio version 3 was the first one I really kind of bought in New York, and bought at home and kind of had a look at it. I began using it purely to organize things. It was a really good way to scan stuff and save files in multi documents, so that you could kind of, did it do multi documents? I can't remember. Maybe it didn't, but it was good, but much easier to kind of organize your work that way, because I can't remember when the crossover happened, but I remember posting artwork to comic publishers, and then not having to post artwork anymore. Then it was, you could send up FTP files and stuff. And so once you're in FTP files, it's just easy to have your own scanner and scan this stuff in. And once you're scanning the stuff in, isn't it easy enough to make a minor correction? And
Yeah.
then once you've started accepted that it's easy to make a minor correction, suddenly you're like, well, that whole panel needs redone. It's already scanned in. I'll just redraw the main figures. And then you find yourself kind of doing, I think the first proper digital commitment I made was about maybe 10 or 15 years ago, on a book I was doing with Garth, called Happy Valley. And I scanned in a thing, and I think I just got a Cintiq for the first time. And I was like, because I'd seen digital artists do digital painting. But I thought, I don't want to do digital painting. I want artwork that looks like I inked it on paper. And a real question at that time was, can digital artwork look like traditional artwork? Can it, will it always look digitally? I mean, like, I remember some of the very first comics that came out that were kind of digital comics. And they were called digital comics because they were created in early versions of Photoshop, with early versions of 3D software. And the 3D artifacts of it, with the low resolution of it, was all very obvious on the page. And so it was a question of, can you do something at high enough resolution that it doesn't look digital? And you could. I mean, I think I inked a panel, and it was one panel on a page. And when it was published, it was like, this doesn't look any different than the other stuff. And so I kind of ended up I push and pull. Sometimes I go old, and the work I'm doing at the moment, for example, I penciled it on paper. I've scanned that pencils in, and I'm inking it traditionally, or sorry, inking it digitally, and I'm inking
Mhm.
it digitally partly because I don't really mind not having the pages. This isn't. Sometimes I do a gig, I do a job, and it's like I'd like to have these pages. These are Judge Dredd pages or something with DC characters. It's like I really want to have those pages in my hand, because I still like every artist is still likes art. I think you sort of forget it. You forget that as an artist, I love art. It's not like I'm drawing it, but I actually love it. And when I do something that I think that's really good. I did something that's really good. I kind of want to have it, I've done stuff in the past where it's digital and I've gone, that looks really nice. It's a pity it's on the computer. So I flip back and forth between the two, and especially the Mark Russell stuff, World War II stuff, where you might have a lot of 3D reference. So a lot of 3D, and the last issue I drew is about a place called Castle Litter, and I manage and Castle Litter is very hard to get photo reference for because it's not. It's a castle in Austria that was used by the Germans during World War II as a prison for high-profile French prisoners, and it then went into sort of private hands and was then a hotel for a few years, and now it's owned. I don't know who owns it, but it's not one of those places you can go to. It's not a place that people have many photos of. But I found a guy who had built a 3D model of it, and I got a copy of his 3D model of him. And he's very kindly handed it over, and I used that in. So I pencil everything traditionally, scan that in, and where I needed tanks and things, I drop a 3D model into it. And integrated with the pencils, and then I would ink over it so that it didn't look like 3D, because when you drop a 3D model in and you just press a button and you get a 3D image, it's like that does not sit with the artwork at all. Whereas I could ink it so that it felt integral and part of the thing. So it was, I mean, I could have done that on paper, and the way you do that on paper is to scan the artwork in, put the 3D models on, print everything in blue. So now you've got printed copies of it, and now you're inking on the blueprint. But actually, that's just an extra step. It's extra expense. It's extra time, and you're relying on a printer printing. And anyone who's any experience with printers knows that that's not a thing you should rely on too much. So it's just easier. Some jobs are just easier to do all digital or at least partially digital, and some are sort of easier to kind of do on paper. I mean, if it's a I don't know. I mean, I've done some stuff for DC, and they've featured Batman or Superman in very minor little roles. And it's like, oh, I would like to have a page that I've drawn that's got Batman in it. That would be
Yeah.
fun. So yeah. So anyway, that's kind of so yeah. I mean, like I would say as well. I wrote articles for Imagine FX magazine. I mean, this is an example of where your skill set is more than just drawing comics.
Mhm.
I came with an IT background, an ability to kind of train people because I've trained people before in IT related stuff. And Imagine FX, I was posting a lot on my blog about my blog actually. I mean, what you see on my blog is not that's like the iceberg. I've been blogging since about 1997, 98, something like that.
Wow. Wow.
Prior to the existence of blogging software, I was writing stuff in a database and pressing a button, it was publishing it, and then I was uploading that. And so I've been blogging. I mean, and every so often I would purge everything and just get rid of it because it's 20 years of stuff, and you don't need to go through. You don't want to go through 20 years of stuff, and you embarrass yourself by rereading it and going, oh, it's making me cringe. So yeah, so I've been blogging for a long time, but Imagine FX, the magazine, so I was talking about using Manga Studio, and they got me to write a bunch of articles on Manga Studio. So that was an income, a little bit of an income for a while. And also, I mean, I've written other articles for IT, online IT magazines and stuff where you're taking that skill set of comics, but also that communication skill set, and also whatever else you've got in the mix. Everyone's got individual strengths, and being able to kind of turn that into something sort of useful and interesting to other people, and yeah, so it's important to not say no to anything.
Oh, this is it. This it's famine or feast, I always
Yeah.
say in this industry. But it's really interesting, just to go back to dog tag for a moment. My undergraduate was in history, so the approach to this particular project is fascinating because it appears Mark's basing the story on real events but using fictional characters. And
Yeah.
then as you're
Yeah.
explaining, you're using real reference as well. So there's a
Mhm.
good verisimilitude, good research basis to it. Do you know how many issues it's going to
It's a
run?
six-issue miniseries, and
Brilliant, brilliant.
I think it'll be collected into one. And it's sort of essentially, it's unusual. I think for me, I mean, most every war thing I've done is either with Garth Ennis, which has
Mhm.
been Garth's fixation on areas of the war, and Garth's got a different approach to Mark. Garth would certainly. It's all real stuff and it's real anecdotes and so on, but the mix is usually Garth will fictionalize every person in it. So you might hear the words of an actual person from World War II, but they will never. Garth will very rarely, if ever, as far as I'm aware, uh, make up dialogue for them. You know, he wouldn't have a character come in that exists and have them say something. It will always be if they say something, it'll be something Garth's researched and found out is a thing they've said, and then the characters will all be kind of doing different things. Mark's approach is slightly different in that there are real people in this that really were. There's an issue with Marlena Dietrich in it. And there's a fictional meeting between her and the main character, and certainly that never happened because that main character doesn't exist, and which obviously written dialogue. But the the reality of that era is Marlene Dietrich did go to the front line and did perform for the troops and did meet the troops, and so that becomes, and Castleator is the same. These people did exist. This part of the war did exist, but this is sort of fictionalized retelling of it with characters that didn't exist as well. So that's been interesting. But also, like Garth comes usually with a British sensibility and Mark's coming with an American sensibility. Although actually, I think that oversimplifies it but Mark's this story is really it's more like a journey through the war from beginning to end. Whereas generally with Garth stuff, all of Garth stuff I've done has been about the individual and their story within a sequence of battle. I think the longest thing in terms of over a time period I've done with Garth as a fictionalized time period was the story of the string bags, which takes place. We meet three characters, and we see them at three consequential parts of the war, where this aeroplane, which is nicknamed the string bag, was used. It's a biplane, which is very unusual, but it was used by the Navy, the British Navy during World War II, and it was involved in three sort of significant operations. And so we follow these three, but it's usually the story of the characters for Garth and Mark's the same. It's the story arc as the story arc of the character, but actually, a reading of it, it's the story arc of American involvement in World War II. I think that's a wider reading of that because the last issue, which I'm about to start, deals with Hiroshima.
Oh,
So
well.
and the absolute no pun intended because it would be terrible to do it, but the fallout from Hiroshima and the fallout from the American reaction to Hiroshima and using the nuclear bomb and so on. So that's it's I think I mean I don't know if this was Mark's intent, but certainly I think you can look at it and read it as America's involvement with World War II as well
Yeah,
as the story of this character.
yeah.
So so
No,
yeah,
it's great
but yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, apologies. I was saying it's great to see the investment of into war comics from US comics publishers at the moment as well. Because it used to be, it was more over in the UK for sure, but you had like a lot of war comics based in the UK. But of course, US had, Cuba as well with Sergeant Rock and a
Yeah.
few others. But it was kind of a dying breed of
Oh
stories
yeah, I
for a
mean, but
while.
I think war comics generally have died out over the years. I mean, what the UK had that America didn't was Garth, and Garth's almost single-minded determination to keep war comics alive. And I mean, and he's gone through various publishers with his war stories, and each one has kind of done them for a while, and then he's found a new publisher because, frankly, I don't think there's as big a readership for war stuff as there might as you'd want there to be or hope there to be. And I think the yeah, like Garth and I are about the same age. I think we're about a week apart, so we're in our 50s. We grew up with war as a kind of, World War Two. Like I think the first anniversary of World War Two, I remember it was the 40th anniversary, which is not that long ago, given
Yeah.
I'm 56 now. Um, and that was in the 80s. And war comics at that point were still a big, in late 70s, early 80s, in the UK, war comics were a big thing, but they imprinted heavily on Garth and me and a whole bunch of other UK readers, I think. America had a slightly different take on that because for whatever I suspect, I mean, you know more about history than me. I'm very limited intelligence, so but I would hazard a guess it might be worth thinking about that. Um, Britain's love of World War Two and kind of relationship with World War Two was never spoiled by Vietnam,
Mm.
whereas the Americans might have been. The
Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, because the Vietnam War would have been the 60s, I think, and that might have had an impact on.
But yeah, that's a very interesting, unique insight as well into the Vietnam dynamic, into the relationship between US and World War II. Have you ever read any material by Robert Caro? He did these great biographies on Lyndon Johnson.
No,
Um,
no.
oh, they're
I've got to be
huge.
honest. What happens is my my insights in the World War Two really come about from being asked to draw World War Two comics. And what happens is I then go off and research it. And usually, if it's a time period or a specific thing, I'll start focusing on that and end up with too much reference and kind of think. I mean, I did a commando comic where, or rather, I didn't do a commando comic. I was asked to do a commando comic where I kind of ended up spending half a day researching for one panel and thinking
Oof,
that I can't afford to do this. And
gotcha.
kind of told the editor, look, I can't do this. And because I kind of, you fall into a little rabbit hole of research. And there's so much stuff, so much stuff. But my specific, if I were to say I had a special interest in World War Two, it would be for the stuff around the Bletchley Park spy stuff more than anything, which is insane and fascinating. So I don't know anything at all about Lyndon Johnson or any of that area. But yeah, you're a history guy, so you would
I,
know that more than me.
Yeah, it was more to do with the Viet Johnson would have been more of Vietnam, but
Oh,
it
Vietnam,
was
yeah, of course.
interesting. Yeah, but it was interesting because the that sentiment, because Caro is, I think he's in his 90s now. He did these great biographies. One's about Robert Moses, who was the guy responsible for shaping of like New York City, and he
Yeah.
was never elected. He just kind of figured out how to work by studying the UK civil service, how to apply that to New York and Albany. But it's amazing the way that Caro's really taken his time to get it right, but capturing that Vietnam sentiment, and you could see the change in the chants and the songs that were
Mm.
happening at the time, the pop culture. But just to shift gears over to Terran Omega, just for our listeners who might be coming, this could be their first introduction to you, or it could be longtime fans who haven't checked it out just yet. What would be the elevator pitch for Terran Omega?
It is a living weapon who wakes up 10,000 years after humanity's war against the alien civilizations has mysteriously ended, and she decides she doesn't want to be a weapon anymore. It's a sort of existential crisis this character has. And But the thing is, like all wars, it's left its mark, and she travels the galaxy trying to kind of fix stuff that humans have left behind. So, essentially, Princess Diana as a spacefaring kung fu expert. Um, so yeah, I mean that's not a great pitch.
It's
The
always an
gist of it is
awardie, don't worry.
yeah, well, the gist of it is that at one point the humans were at war with every alien species in the galaxy. The Terran Omega is this character who is kind of created to be a last stop weapon of last resort. Should the aliens kind of start winning, so she's put in suspended animation in order to be woken up when they need her. and they don't wake her up. And 10,000 years later, she wakes up, everyone's gone, humanity's gone, the war has entered the realms of myth, if that, if anyone remembers it at all. And she kind of looks around and goes, "What am I for? What is my purpose? I'm not a weapon." Not a weapon for a war that doesn't exist. I'm not. I can't bring humanity back. It's gone. So what am I for? And she decides that she will go through the galaxy and basically try and make right those things that humanity has done. So it's a sort of I kind of in there's lowbrow and there's highbrow. The lowbrow pitch is it's kung fu in space. For anyone who remembers the TV show Kung Fu, David Carradine plays a kung fu expert who is now traveling the west of America in the 1800s. And you never find out much about his background except in flashback, but he is sort of trained in kung fu but doesn't want to use it and is constantly being harassed into using it. He travels from town to town, helping people out. And then in flashback, you'll find out why he's such an expert in kung fu. And I mean, it's a sort of monster of the week kind of story idea where kung fu, the Incredible Hulk TV series, is the same basic pattern where he's got incredible powers, never wants to use them, travels from town to town, and ends up having to use those powers in some for some reason because that's the only way he can get out of it. And or the littlest hobo is another is another. That's the lowbrow pitch. And the highbrow pitch is it's about what war does to people and what war does to civilizations and how empires crumble and are destroyed and what they leave behind and how the marks of an empire can be left. I mean, you said there about how New York studied the civil service, the English civil service. The thing that I instantly sprung to my mind was people talking. I remember hearing someone saying about the one thing the British Empire left behind was bureaucracy. Everywhere it went and everywhere it left behind a working bureaucracy, and for better or worse. And so the idea is that this character is going to travels through space, and she finds things that are impacting the people around them, and they are things that were maybe weapons or something that's been left behind. So that's the character. That's the character Terran Omega. This first story, because that's just background for her. The first story is she stumbles across a scrapyard spaceship that's just floating dead in space, and on board it, she's attacked by two ghosts that have been resurrected by a weapon that humanity built 10,000 years ago to bring the dead back to life.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
that's the pitch. That's the pitch. So,
And do you
yeah.
have
So,
a set number of episodes on installments for it? Or are you just going to keep
so
going?
the original plan was I was going to write one story a year. I would
Mhm.
write one story, I would draw a book, and I would publish it as a nice hardback or something,
Mhm.
and that would be it. It was really about I have a lot of books on my shelf that are works that I've done, but almost every single one of them is like 12 pages here, 18 pages there, 9 pages here, and so on. And you kind of look at it, and it's such a sort of disparate, disjointed collection of things that you kind of feel like I don't have a voice, I'm in all these. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm very lucky that I've had that kind of work at all. It shows, I suspect, the sort of flexibility in my art style and a willingness to kind of go, yeah, let's do this. This will be fun. And also, I get asked to work again with people. That's all, which is good because I'm easygoing and I deliver quickly and stuff. So that's great. But the problem is that there's not many books that are just me. Of the books that I've done that are just me as an artist, you can count on one hand. I've had a couple. I mean, I've had a little bit of bad luck because the book I did with Garth, The String Bags, came out just as COVID hit. So it vanished without trace. It was a lovely book. I also did a book with Garth called The Lion and the Eagle, which is another World War II thing, and it came out just as the publisher uh, went into chapter 11. So
Ah,
that's two publishers gone. So, I've had very few collections where it's just my work. So I kind of thought, well, I'd love to do. There's a friend of mine, Dan McDade, who did a lovely book called Dega, which is he self-published. It was a color hardback French album style. I thought, I want one of those. I want to do one of those, and nobody was going to ask me to do one. Um, and I could combine with a writer, but then the writer would have their own ideas. And also, as I've said before, I don't know what commitment I could bring to it. It's all well and good saying, I can do this. I mean, it's that be fast, be good, or be easy to work with. Well, I couldn't guarantee I could be fast. I could be good. I don't know how easy I'd be to work with because you'd never be able to get me. So it's like I wouldn't offer myself to anyone on that basis. But um, I thought I could do, if I could do this one book a year, actually, I would do Terran Omega this year, do something else next year, something else the following year. Every year I could do a little hardback book. And actually, if I do and I print one, as long as it hasn't lost me money in any big shape, then, I mean, of course, if you add up how much money it would cost me to do a 50-page book, that is some, I don't know what insane amount of money that is. It's like 15 grand or something. I don't know, whatever it is. It's a big amount of money. That's how much in real terms that would cost me to pay for someone else to do it. But because I'm doing it at the weekend on my own steam, it doesn't feel like I'm costing myself anything. And I get a lovely, the plan is to get a lovely book out of it. So that was my original plan. And I would do one book. And what happened was I kind of got to the halfway stage on Terran Omega. I thought, oh, I could actually, this is a single comic. I could print that up. And I did that. And it's
Mhm.
really nice. And I thought, oh, this is kind of fun. I don't care if I sell any because it's nice to have a book that's all me. Um, and uh, and then I'm coming up to the second issue being complete soon. I'm about 7 weeks away from the end of it, 7 pages, 7 weeks. And then at that point, I'll collect the second issue. And then at some point in the future, I'll collect it all into a hardback book. And I don't want to say who it is because, and these things aren't, don't happen until they happen. Like
Mhm.
and when you talk, I have friends who have, talk about getting film deals and so on. This is not a film deal, by the way. This is, but so no one thinks it is. But I have friends who've had film deals and stuff, and they often talk about, yeah, but until it's happening, it's not happening.
Yeah.
And you might have a contract signed, you might have money spent. Until it's happening, it's not happening. And even then, anyone like the last year or two has proved that even if someone goes to the whole process of selling a movie, paying for cast, filming the thing, editing the thing, producing the thing, finishing it, making a finished film, it might still get put into a bin. You don't know. Like there's
Yeah.
no way of knowing. So I don't want to. So I don't really like cursing things by saying this is a thing that's happening. But I have interest from a publisher, and that means that they've asked, "Is there more of this?" And I've gone, ah. So essentially, I've had to write a 12. I've written a 12 issue kind of guideline.
Okay.
And the 12 issue guideline is more along the lines of here's the title, here's what I think is going to happen in this, and here's how many issues it is. So I've got the next two issues all written. It's called The Seed. So this first one is a ghost story. The Seed is more Terran Omega is going back to a planet that she was once on 10,000 years previously when she was a soldier. And now she's not a soldier. And now she's trying to make amends, basically. And you're going to find out, make amends for what exactly. And then I've got another story after that called The Seven, which is loosely me going, well, what can I do with Seven Samurai and Terran Omega? What can I do with that? And that's the thing. Is like the nice thing about your own character is you can go, actually, what if I want to do a story like this? What if I want to do a Godzilla story?
Yeah.
How would I do? How can I bring my character into it and have a giant monster? How can I do this and have a? So I mean, Terran Omega is kind of the Ghosts of War was about me wanting to do a ghost story in space. I wanted to do a spaceship with a ghost on it. I thought that would be a fun thing to do. And then as the story evolved and as I've written it and I've drawn it, now the second half of the arc is much more like. Um, Chunks of Clash of the Titans. It's like, it's zombie monsters on a weird abandoned planet that looks like sort of Athens. Like it's. I mean, the nice thing about writing your own stuff, I think, is that suddenly you're allowed to those little things you fixate about in your head. You're allowed to play with those things that have always been in there, but you can't quite get out. You're allowed to go, oh, actually, this would be. I mean, I did years and years ago. I suggested I wanted to do Seven Samurai story in Necromunda, which is the
Okay.
Warhammer 40k kind of world. That sort of Necromunda is like it's a game. So for those who don't know, Warhammer 40K is a tabletop game where you play with figures and you measure and shoot and you do all this stuff. Necromunda is a similar game, except it's set in one city and it's much smaller. So instead of having an army of 400 people in your side, you might have 7 or 8 people. And I was doing working for Warhammer Monthly, which was a Warhammer comic, and this is 2003, maybe 2002. And I said, look, I've got a really good idea for like a thing. I really want to do Seven Samurai. I went, well, how would you do Seven Samurai? I went, well, in Necromunda, because you can set it in the basement of the city where there's all this oil everywhere, which means no one's allowed to use their guns, because if you fire a gun, it'll explode. So that wipes guns. And in Necromunda and Warhammer, people have swords as well. Then, it's not unusual to have a sword or a blade or whatever. And I thought we could do a whole Seven Samurai thing. And I went, well, how would you do it that would be different? And I went, well, so in Seven Samurai, the bandits arrive and they're fought off by a bunch of mercenaries, and that's sort of the gist of it. I says, what if the bandits arrive and want 50% of everything, and the mercenaries get rid of the bandits? And he said, well, how would you end it? I went, well, the mercenaries take 100% of everything. They're worse. They're worse than the bandits. That's what you do. And he went, great, let's do that. And we got a friend, well, a friend of mine now, James Beattie, who ended up writing this idea. But this is unfortunately the comic folded before we got it
Ah,
in print. I was paid to draw. I mean, I drew it. I was paid to draw it.
mhm.
And it's a sort of the nice thing about, like, no matter what happens with Terran Omega, I guarantee I'll be able to do these stories that I want to do, because I'll do them for myself. I'm just going to do them for myself. I think that is as I was saying about artwork, it's a balm for the soul. This is sort of how I can. Well, the one thing I would say that's slightly annoying about it is that suddenly you get offered a story to do and you think to yourself, oh, but this isn't. Where's the? Maybe I'd be happier doing this other thing, you know, because it is sort of. I know writers that could write Terran Omega 10 times better than I could do it. I know artists that could draw it 10 times better than I could do it. The reality is that none of those people are going to do that, and only I could do that. Only I will be able to do that particular thing, and because the things that I'm fixated about will become the things that the story's about.
Mhm.
The like, I know lots of people that might go, well, this story is about monsters and ghosts, and I'll be in the back of my head going, yeah, but it's also about post-empire and about how weapons of war can lay and still kill you 10,000 years later. That's also what it's about. So that's, yeah. So it's kind of. I'm glad I'm doing more of it. I don't know. I mean, as I say, I've had an expression of interest from a publisher. Nothing may happen with that, and
Mhm.
but what it did do was it spurred me on to kind of writing more of it, and kind of not just writing um, a 12, setting out an outline for 12 issues, but also setting out an arc for 5 years. Which I've done. The reality is, if I were to do a 5 year arc at the rate that I'm doing it right now, I'll not be finished till I'm in my 80s. But that's neither here nor there. If someone offers to pay me to draw it, then it means I can do it faster. So that's the thing. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun sort of thing to start writing stuff. And because I've been coloring all of it as well, I've never colored as much stuff as I
Mhm.
have now. Usually I would color a cover. I'd ask, like, can I color this cover? Can I do a cover? Can I do a pinup? And I'll color it. I've done a couple of things with DC where I don't know how it's happened, but one of the DC editors said, "Oh, can you color this?" And I went, "Yeah." And then they came back and they said, "Actually, we don't have any. Have you colored stuff for us before?" And I went, "No." And they went, "Oh, right. Oh." Can you send us
Oh.
some colors to show that we know that you can color? I think editors accidentally asked me. And then that meant I think the next thing after that I did was color as well. And it was like, yeah, you can color it too. Great. Great. So but the thing is, I've never colored more than 6 or 7 pages before. And this is now 50 pages. And actually, I think it takes you a number of pages to discover your voice. I think it takes you a while to kind of start. Not there's the technical aspect of coloring, which is how do you figure out how the tools work, and then there's your taste, which is I don't really like. I've never put these two colors together before in my life. Now I've done it. I don't like them, but and then now I've done it. Oh, actually, I like that. That's nice. And then you kind of step back and you go, oh, actually, it's readable, but it's really colorful. And it's yeah. I don't have complaints about the color because any color's doing it. You'll always kind of there'll always be moments where you go, wow, not expecting that. But actually, there's also moments where you're going, well, that's pretty much as expected. There's no surprises there, you know. And you can, but that's partly as well because the colorist is going, I've got to color this thing. I don't want to do anything too shocking, so I'll do this. Whereas when you're coloring it yourself, you can go, I can be as outrageous as I want here. If it's not right, I'll tear it back and bring it back in again. But actually, I would rather go big and then kind of bring it back in than kind of start small and not know where the ceiling is, you know.
That's brilliant. And like the real takeaway from myself listening is just the trying. You know, a lot of people have these ideas like, I think I'll do this, they never act upon it. Now, in fairness, a lot of it can be a struggle because, you know, family, economic situation, etc. But if you're fortunate enough to be able to carve out that time and still a dedication to it, what can be achieved. And it's wonderful to hear as well, that, you know, your approach, just as you said towards the end there of coloring, it's great that you're still pushing yourself into new territories within the art form. Because sometimes people, you know, you might feel you're getting very settled or stagnant in a place, but go, no, I think I'll push myself here. I'll try more of this. Now, this has been wonderful. And I say, folks listening, really going to enjoy. I've really enjoyed this conversation. This has been fantastic.
I'm sorry,
Uh,
Owen. It's been less a conversation and more a rant from me for the entire
well,
time.
let me tell you this, the episodes where I don't have to talk as much are by far statistically the best episodes we ever have because no one's tuning in to listen to myself. Recently, we just announced we're doing a Steve Ditko documentary. I did a mini
Right.
series last year on the podcast and I'm recutting it to be a video. And we had Mark, his nephew. We had Dr. Zach Cruzy, who wrote a great book about him, Mysterious Travelers, and Jack C. Harris, who was his friend and editor. And I've basically cut myself out of it, and it's doing the trailer released, and it's doing quite well when I'm not in it. So that's all the evidence I need. But just for the audio audience, so pauljholden.com is the website.
Hmm.
Patreon.com/PJ Holden's the Patreon page. Do you have any upcoming events or anything that you want to promote for anyone
No,
catching?
I think I'm all done with events for the year. Is basically just I keep watching Blue Sky, which is where I post most of my things.
Brilliant.
I've got I'm in this month's magazine, which is 2080 Judge Dredd magazine. I'm doing a strip
Brilliant.
called Fargo and McBain. There's four issues of four. I was in four issues of it, so you probably have to go back and find the last three if you want to buy that. And the what do you call it? Um, Dog Tags, which is out now. Issue two should be out this week, I think. And I'm trying to think if I'm in anything else. Oh, and they reprinted. I know they reprinted the DC Mad About DC for
Yeah.
which was I did a one page thing in there with Al Ewing,
Oh, awesome.
which was a great fun little thing to do. Al is one of the ones who I came up with in the small press and sort of went on
Awesome.
to, which is why I always tell people, encourage them to kind of find out other people doing this stuff. Go to
Mhm.
comic conventions, meet people doing, you will, those people, those peers will become, some of them might not make it, some of them might drop out, some of them might find normal day jobs or whatever, but actually some of them might make it, some of them might end up being in a position to kind of go, let's do something together for DC or whatever. So
Oh, wonderful. No, this has been great and very best of luck as well with the Eisner Awards. That happened in July, is it?
it's
August?
happening in July. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is going to be exciting. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
I,
It's the first time I've ever, but that's the thing is that, going back to deciding to write my own thing was that, I felt quite stuck where I was in terms of being a creative, in terms of being an artist. It's very easy to fall into a sort of well, here's the publisher that knows me best, and they will always give me work, and I will always accept that work. And to find yourself um, treading water and like, well, this is great. This is good. I've always wanted to do this, and now I'm doing it. And but you don't feel like you're ever going to move. And the act of writing something for myself, and it was always obvious to me that, as I said earlier, that the only way to have any kind of control of your career is to start writing for yourself. And the act of writing something for myself and doing that, and then submitting that to the Eisner, suddenly you have an Eisner nomination, and that is that that wouldn't have come about without me kind of going, I need to do something different. I don't think as good an artist as I am, as good a writer as I might be, I don't think I've ever been in a position to be nominated for Best Writer or Best Artist in an Eisner. I don't think Eisners would have ever noticed me, which is fine. There's so many more talented people than me. But doing the webcomic is suddenly you're in now you're being looked at for a different thing, and which encompasses your writing and encompasses your drawing. So it's sort of a good way to kind of do that. I
And it's
could talk for
wonderful
hours
that it's
about,
your own.
sorry.
I was saying it's wonderful that it's your own creation as well.
Yeah,
Like for
yeah.
all that you've done, this is 100% you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really I've become slightly evangelical about telling other artists to do something like it, to carve out the time and to kind of go, look, it is hard, but once you figure out the solution for me was to figure out I can do one page a week. Every single artist, no matter how fast or how slow, you can say you can do one page a week. And actually, if you're one of those artists that is quite slow and can do 3 pages in a week, and one page on a weekend is too much, understandable. Just drop the quality. Just do it looser, do it sketchier, do something that is not as time involved, because it's almost always because the quality bar they have is so high that they can't get to there unless they spend a lot of time on it. It's like do something like Brian Boland did a strip called Mr. Mammalian, and it's a really loose, scratchy Brian Boland art style that's much faster than his normal Brian Boland art style, and yet it's still good. It's still good and still worth reading. But anyway, that's sorry.
Oh, no, no, absolutely. This it's been brilliant. Like, and it's like again, thanks so much, PJ. Like this, totally enjoyed this. This has been amazing. Best of luck with everything, and hopefully we'll. This is coming out at this point recording be Tuesday, and we're doing 20 episodes this season. So you're just the second last one before we close out. So hopefully next season then we can follow up and see how things progress. That'd be
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Hopefully I'm still doing it. We'll see. We'll see.
Thanks a million, PJ. Thanks so much.
Thanks, on. Thank you.